Now we'll look at reversing the inequality sign. So this is the very, very important part of inequalities. Have a look, guys. If A is greater than B, if I stick negative in front of both, if I multiply both sides by a negative, you must switch the sign. So see how the sign is reversed? So the key thing is this. If you're dividing or multiplying, so this only refers to division and multiplication. If you're dividing or multiplying by a negative number, you always reverse or switch the sign over. So you switch the sign if you're dividing or multiplying by a negative. That's all I want you to remember. Okay, and I'll show you when I get to the questions. Question 27, it says solve negative x is greater than 3. I don't want negative x, I just want x. I'll move the negative over to the other side. I could multiply by negative 1, right? If I multiply both sides by negative 1, that negative 1 times negative x is positive x, isn't it? Which is what we want. But remember, guys, if we're multiplying by a negative number, we reverse the sign. So this will be x, and I switch the sign over to the other direction, and that will be negative 3. Okay, so does that make sense? So 28, I'll do the same kind of thing, but first of all, I should move the 2 over. So move the 2 over by subtracting it. So 6 minus 2 is, which will be 4, but I don't want negative x. I make it positive x and make it negative 4 by switching the sign over. Question 29. Now I don't want negative 2x, I just want x. So how do I get rid of the negative 2? We divide. So I'm going to go 6 divided by negative 2. But negative 2 is a negative number. So when we're dividing by a negative, we must reverse the sign. So I'm going to first reverse the sign. Well, what they did was put the negative over first, and then they divided by 2. You can do it all at once if you can. You can divide by negative 2 straight out all at once, or if you don't like that, if you want to go step by step, you can put the negative over first by switching the sign over and then dividing it by 2. Either way is fine, as long as you remember to reverse the sign, okay? 30. Okay, move your 2 over to the other side by making it minus 2, which is negative 12. And I'm going to get rid of the negatives on both sides. So I got rid of the negatives and I switched the sign. Because basically it's like multiplying by negative 1 onto both sides. So negative makes a positive, negative makes a positive. But because we're multiplying by a negative number, we must switch the sign. So divide by 3 now to get x. Okay, so see how now the sign is still switched? That's what you're going to remember. 31, let's gather our like terms. So move all the x's on your left and all the constants on your right, like that. So x minus 3x is negative 2x. 7 plus 3 is 10. And I have a negative, so I'm going to make it positive by moving the negative over to this side and switching the sign. And then dividing it by 2 to make negative 5. Or guys, from here, if you can just divide it straight by negative 2. So x, you switch the sign because negative 2 is a negative number, and then 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. You can go straight to that step if you can. Alright, otherwise stick to what I do if you like to go step by step. 32, we've got grouping symbols. Well, every time you see a grouping symbol, just expand it. So I'm going to expand this out first. So I have 2x minus 2. Gather your like terms. So move all the x's on your left and the constants on your right. X minus 2x is negative x, and negative 2 minus 3 is minus 5. Now get rid of the negatives on both sides by multiplying both sides by negative 1. But because negative 1 is a negative number, we must reverse the sign and make them positive. Okay, so x is greater than positive 5. 33. Now this one's a bit different because we've got one whole inequality with x. Negative x is greater than negative 2, but less than or equal to 3. When we have something like this, guys, whatever you do to this, you must do it to all the outer sides. So see how I don't want the negative there? I'm going to move the negative here, and you must also do that to here. But because it's negative, I must reverse the sign like this. That's how I get negative 3 and positive 2. Watch here, guys, for those who are not really sure. I'm multiplying everything by -1. So that becomes 2, and that becomes x, and that becomes -3. And because I'm multiplying by a negative, I switch the sign. So that becomes like that and like that. And then if x is greater or equal to 3, I can just flip this over and make it like, which is the same thing. That's the same thing, isn't it? So that's why I like to have it like that. I usually, the reason why I'm doing that is because I like to have the smaller number on my left-hand side all the time and my larger number on my right. That's why I flipped it. 34, okay, I want to get rid of the -2 again. So make it +2 and put the -6 here and put the +10 here, and then the sign would go the same direction. And then divide everything by 2. So I have -3, x, and then +5. Now 36, I'm going to do the same thing, move the 1 over first. So add 1 to both sides like that, and that will be -12, and that will be 6. And get rid of the negative. So I'm going to multiply everything by a negative. So the -6 goes here, and the +12 goes here. And therefore the sign will be in the same direction. And then divide by 3 to get something like that. Question 37, we're going to do the same thing by adding 1 here. So subtract 1 onto both sides like this. Get -2 here and 2 here. And I don't want the negative here, so I'll multiply both sides by a negative. So this becomes +2, which I'll put over here, and this becomes -2, which I'll put over here. And the sign is the same direction. I don't really like having decimals. Decimals always confuse me. So what I'm going to do is multiply everything by 10. So I don't have the 0.2. So this becomes 2 if I multiply by 10. This becomes 20, and this becomes 20. So now I don't have any more decimals. Divide everything by 2, because that's 2x. So divide by 2, you get -10 to 10, and that's the answer. 38, I don't want the 5, so subtract 5 onto both sides like that, and this is what you should have, -16 and 12. I don't want the negative, so multiply both sides by negative. So this becomes +16, this becomes -12. And the bar is now here. Guys, I'll show you one more time just for the sake of those who are still a little bit confused. So if I multiply everything by a negative, that becomes +16, and the sign switches and it becomes +2x, the sign switches, and -12, right? Now, as I said, I want the smaller number to go onto my left, so that's why I reverse this and becomes -12, 2x to 16. That's how I get that, just for the sake of those who are still a little bit confused of how I get from this step to this step. And then, of course, we now divide it by 2, and that's the answer. X is greater than -6, but less than or equal to 8. Okay, so that's the idea. Just remember, guys, if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative, just switch the sign or reverse the sign to the other direction. Okay, so that's the end of this part here.